we're home now. I know we had a national lockdown a few months back, but now that our own county has been locked down, I think it's hitting home more.
People in Donegal still coming to terms with level 3 restrictions, and of course it has started to limit the travel domestically, also internationally, particularly if you're a dub. If you're in level 3, you can't actually fly out. You're meant to stick to the same restrictions as if you were travelling to Wicklow or Meath or wherever it is, instead of travelling to the few countries that you can go to. And to have a look at this now, we are going to talk about where you can travel. Can you go on any holidays at the moment? What's the state of the government's Stay and Spend initiative? I'm joined by Eoghan Corry, the editor of Air and Travel magazine. And Eoghan, look, it's been a difficult year for hospitality. I think that's all around. To start with, there is a new green list coming effective tomorrow. It's rather small, though.
We're down to 4 countries. It is beyond meaningless, Sean. One of the countries doesn't have flights to Ireland. It's the Principality of Liechtenstein. But let's put this in context. There are just under 100 flights out of Dublin today, and the same in the other direction. Not one of those is to a green list country. Over the weekend, 300 flights. I think the only one to a green list country is the Paphos flight from Ryanair. That's 300 out, 300 in, by the way. There are 15,000 people going through Dublin Airport on average each day. And it's in a parallel to these restrictions drawn up by the government, a green list with 4 countries on it, which bears no relationship to what's actually happening in travel. Where it is affecting is business travel, service machines becoming unserviced, people who want to do the right thing left disconnected with their families through Europe. It's a situation where people who are in sort of the business world have been treated with nothing less than contempt by the Irish travel policy, which is very different from what's happening in the rest of Europe.
Those 4 countries, Cyprus, Finland, Latvia and the new addition, Liechtenstein, as was mentioned, for all the people who love holidaying in Liechtenstein, get that summer sun. Eoghan, it does seem to be very at odds with what some other countries in Europe are doing, particularly given that we are going to be adopting this new green list from Europe eventually. Why is that? Is it just that the 25 per 100,000, the arbitrary number they put on it, is that too low, or is there a more nuanced response we could be taking?
Way too low. The arbitrary response. What they did was, we had an announcement 3 weeks ago, that from Micheál Martin, we were going to align with the EU policy. He put a couple of riders on that. The EU policy has evolved since June the 15th. We've ignored EU policy until now. The EU is going to work on 3 different, or is working already, because most countries unofficially are aligning to it, on 3 different metrics: a green list under 25, an amber list, which is basically a watch list under 50 cases over the last 14 days per 100,000, and then a red list for people who are over 50. It also has a second metric, which is 3%, more than 3% of positive tests. The reason for this, Sean, is not to penalise countries which test a lot. You could call it the Luxembourg clause. Luxembourg has a population of 700,000. They've actually tested more than 800,000 people because so many Luxembourg residents live in neighbouring countries. They have a very high rate of positives, and people ascribe that to the fact they tested so much. So you have a second metric, no more than 3% positive, and you have a third clause, which is you regionalise. You don't pick the whole of Spain, including the Canary Islands with its low rate, the whole of Portugal, Madeira's rate is less than 20, and put it in one category. I think what the Irish government's entire policy since the middle of March has been to try and prevent travel, and they've latched on to a little bit of the EU policy to say, how is this going to serve the goal here, which is preventing travel, stopping travel, rather than trying to align to it with any sort of spirit of keeping borders open and keeping travel open and keeping the economy moving, which is what the European Union has been trying to do in great difficulty because the rates are going up all over Europe.
There had been some talk earlier this week, particularly in regard to Dublin Airport, that testing could be introduced, but not a huge amount of detail as to how that would actually work. Do we know, would it be a quick test when you get in, you have to wait a couple of hours in the airport, or has any of that been finalised?
Lots of different test options out there. The one thing I see, and it's clear from our own my own NEFIT sources, and from people even throughout Europe, is that short-term antigen testing doesn't carry a lot of weight in the medical community. It's great. The travel is all crying for it. They're crying for anything that will get people booking and get people to have some sort of trust in international travel. But the medical community see it as a waste of resources. They see it as something that produces a lot of false positives, can be up to 20% false positives, depending on which antigen test you're guiding you. And also they see it as something that is only a reading from a point in time. Now, what aviation, when you go into the scratching of the heads among the aviators of the world, I think the tracing, the test and trace, the combination of testing and tracing is really where they see the future. The aviation industry particularly is very, very good at data. It's very, very good at finding who's been on what flight when. And that's where they see possibly some sort of out of the terrible crux that they're in at the moment. And countries that have brought in testing for travellers, two things have happened. It's tied up a lot of resources, and the second thing is it's produced very, very few cases. Only 1.6% since the start of the pandemic have been traceable to international travel of all the cases, the 33,000 cases we have in Ireland. And that is replicated through Europe, and it's replicated on the air routes through Europe, that you put a lot of resources into finding very few cases. I'm not sure Dublin Airport is got any idea of who's going to pay for the testing that they're talking about.
Let's talk about domestic travel as well, because a lot of people have been looking that to this year. And the front page of the Business Post this morning warning that 88% of hotel rooms could lie empty in November. That's from a survey of the Irish Hotels Federation. Have people just stopped booking? And the restrictions that have come in, particularly in Dublin and Donegal, what kind of an impact have we seen and are we likely to see over the winter?
People have stopped booking. The law with the rules under the lockdown are that if you're in the hotel, you're allowed to stay there, but no new check-ins. What we've seen happen with the counties that have been locked down, the initial three, Dublin and now Donegal, is that hoteliers have been contacting people due to check in and saying you can't come in. That is devastated what little business, trickle of business there was there. Our occupancy rates during July and August would have to be really, really high, particularly in rural areas, particularly in places like Donegal. They should be looking at 90%. They made it to about 50, 60% in some parts of the West during the summer. Now they're being told 88%, but Dublin's rate even without lockdown was only about 13%. Hoteliers are looking at carnage. Established hoteliers like Brian McAniff wondering if he'll ever open. This is a man who's been through the troubles in Northern Ireland and all the other foot and mouth and all the other crises, 9/11, wondering if he'll open his hotels again. So the hotel, it's a short enough season to start with for the West. They got a little bit of a slice out of it, but now they're looking at a long and lonely winter, as is the aviation industry, as is everything to do with inbound tourism. Our real problem now, Sean, is will there be a 2021? Will somebody in the Irish government make a decision that we're going to try and get a aviation policy in that will give us something to sell in 2021? And the last question is, will we have something to sell?
And a lot of those questions need to be addressed in the budget. Obviously, it's coming in just a few weeks' time. Very finally, Eoghan, to what edges are those likes of hoteliers, but particularly airlines as well, being pushed? If 2021 is a write-off, can any of them actually continue, or at what point would things need to return? What's the point of no return, I suppose I'm getting at, for a lot of these people?
Decisions are going to be made in October about the winter schedule. It's quite clear the winter schedule is going to be a dribble to and from Ireland. The big action comes next March. The airlines are all making decisions. They're all under pressure. I mean, big story that has been rumbling over the weekend is the survival of EasyJet, which is one of the best funded of the European airlines. There's some suggestion that without summer 2021, they're going to fail. An awful lot of the traditional airlines across the world are wondering, will they be able to continue? What we need in Ireland is some sort of signal with a combination of NEFIT's guidance that should the figures not start coming back down again, which there's no appearance that they are internationally. Some countries are now in their fifth wave, and some European countries are talking about their second wave. What will be done to keep the borders open and to keep aviation moving? We've two strong airlines in Ireland. We're very lucky they haven't gone looking for bailouts, Ryanair and Aer Lingus, but they're both talking about cutting capacity in the case of Ryanair, moving aircraft that would be on the island off the island, and in Aer Lingus is, rebranding some of their aircraft, painting them in the colours of Iberia and British Airways and moving them off the island. We could end up moving, Sean, from being one of the most connected, globally centred islands in the world at the beginning of March to being one of the most disconnected in 2021. And it's not true. It's not true to say this is all just down to the coronavirus. It's down to our reaction to it and the policy decisions that are coming from that reaction and the person animus response of the government to the health advice that they were given over the last 6 months.
Okay, Eoghan Corry, editor of Air and Travel magazine. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Always a pleasure, Sean.
Who has been trying to get around this? The Beach Hotel in Downings in Donegal. We're offering rooms for just €2, so people could come in and dine indoors to get through the stop that they had masked up before level 3 came in. They have withdrawn that now, though, after a bit of a public backlash.